Hello, I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. Welcome, everybody, to the newest live war update. Today is the 8th of April, 2018, and it's 20 minutes to 1 a.m. here in Zurich, Switzerland. I have just arrived home. I am being brutally mutilated right now as we speak. I had to move out of my bunker because they were machine gunning me to death inside, and the inside reflections just made every shot bounce back and forth, 100 times it felt like. So I have now set up here in the dining room. I have shifted, so you can see I'm totally surrounded to the ceiling. You can also see the outer, that there's extra layers of aluminium, 2 extra layers outside this, the reflectix. So just to, show you the entire circle up here, this is where I sit, okay? Right? The walls are reinforced with these bamboo sticks to make them light and easy to carry. And then inside, I've got an extra layer of reflectix with metal on. Okay, so like this. So that's where I sit. I'm surrounded by, reflectix, 2 layers of reflectix, which is 4 layers of alu. Although with the reflectix, I suspect it's more like plastic sprayed with a little bit of silver. By the way, before I continue, let me just check if you can actually hear me. Just a sec. Okay, you can hear me probably. Okay, so I've got a lot to tell you, but I've got really a lot to tell you. So much has happened, and I have discovered a few things, and I would like you to discover a few things where I really need help. I need a few moments to compose myself because I'm utterly overwhelmed by what's rattling around in my head. So basically, I would like to give you an update. Today I had to flee my flat because the immediately adjacent neighbors, either side, I now suspect the neighbor on the west side of me, directly adjacent, the neighbor on the east side, directly adjacent, as well as slightly to the southeast where the satanic head used to be, that entire block to be involved in the mutilation, and then also a flat to the north, northeast. And that's each flat, I suspect, for different reasons, okay? But the bottom line is that I'm being machine gunned from 2 sides, where each gun can shoot through several walls. As I'm sitting right here, I've got this like general pummeling and shot sensation in my body, pretty much on my back and from the front and sometimes in my face. When I go live, they kind of contain themselves a bit, so the loud bangs of the reflectix stop sounding, but that's just because I'm live. They usually fire up again when I'm here. So I just would like to say that the Nazi neighbors seem to have been given the finish her the fuck off sort of signal from Dr. Paul Zinnecker, who is the head of the NDB. He's the interim director because Markus Seiler left his post I think in December or November or something like that. And he became the secretary to the foreign minister or something like that. Okay, it's like a spy position. So the foreign office is like fucking spy central. So the secretary is kind of like the freaking covert infiltrator position of the foreign office, sort of bullshit. Anyway, so he went from being a spy to being a spy, basically. Okay, so yeah. But anyway, so in the meantime, Dr. Paul Zinnecker is in charge of this Nazi extermination program, the Holocaust of the Swiss people. And you can actually find his telephone number online. And if I'm quick, I might even find it. But anyway, otherwise I'll post it. Either way, next week I'll start a massive campaign to actually, get through. Well, I probably can't get through and they'll probably murder me. But in my murder, I would like to implicate as many officials as I possibly can. In other words, I'm now with the strategy of, it's like when do you ever play this game in, I don't know, wherever you are in America or in Britain, in Germany, we used to have this game whereby, one person has to catch the others. Okay, so you're playing it in the schoolyard. So if you're the person who has to catch the others, you catch them by just tapping them, okay? If you tag them, they're down and out of the game, okay? They just freeze or they just march off the pitch. So you end up, spending your entire break running around, expending energy, but very refreshing, in German schools, which are dead boring. But anyway, this kind of like tagging and taking them out, I'm playing that game, okay? And I encourage all the victims to play the same game, because now we know, we have written evidence, and more evidence is coming, that the secret services have planned and put into place a global Nazi holocaust. And I have published the numbers. They are planning to kill off, I think, 83% of the Americans, 78% of all the British, something like 63% of the Germans, if I remember correctly, and 33% of all the Swiss. Now, you might ask, why the hell only 33% only? Why do you only kill every third Swiss person? Well, the reason for that, in my view, is twofold. Number one, Switzerland is the headquarters of the fucking Nazi mafia, and has been. It's the headquarters of the Vatican mafia. That's where all the criminals are. Okay, so they're not going to kill themselves. They're going to kill the Swiss who are not members, not high up members of the cartel, because the cartel's also relocating to the Himalayas, being a better Switzerland, really. So they're going to fuck the Swiss, okay? That's what I'm trying to tell the Eidgenossen, but they're not really listening because I'm just a woman, So, but anyway, they will get it eventually. But the other reason why they are only killing 33% of the Swiss is because Switzerland, you might not know, has only about just over 8 million inhabitants. Now, Greater London, depending on which estimate you take, has about 10 to 12 million. So Switzerland, the entirety of Switzerland, is smaller, significantly smaller than London. Okay, so it means that if you kill every third Swiss, you have pretty much paralyzed the country, and you can do whatever you like. Okay, so yes, and then you can think about who is going to be every third Swiss. Is that going to be the oligarchs who are, romping around? Is that going to be the people who are running the military bases? Them too, because you want those military bases. So all these old Swiss families have to go, but then most of the time it will be the 33% will be not just 1 in 3 where I am. It would be probably everybody where I am. Okay, so my stupid fucking Nazi neighbors who are machine gunning me are too fucking dumb to do the data analysis and actually figure out that they're going to die too. So it is for this reason that when I released the neighborhood campaign, I made a point of explaining to them the basic physics of microwaves. Okay, if you're microwaving a wall, you're going to be hit on the face by exactly 50%, thereabouts. I get 50%, they get 50%. So they're irradiating me because they want to kill me off, because I'm actually trying to save their lives, ironically. And then with the other 50%, they kill their neighbors and themselves, and they're irradiating their own children. And there are actually some very young children where I live, nearby, either side of the house. Well, those children, after 2 years, because children are very small, so microwaves penetrate children, right? And their vital organs and their brain especially much more easily, okay? So you can forget about the children, and say thank you to the fucking Nazi Swiss around me. But also there are a lot of old people. So what these old people don't understand is that they've just expedited their own death. I don't know how much money they get given, but I don't think it will be enough time to actually spend the money. And the other thing that they don't know is that every single time the mafia sets up an asset stripping, it's not going to be asset stripping if you actually pay anybody any money, right? So whatever you get paid, the mafia is going to get more out of you. That's just how the game works with the mafia, okay? The bank, always wins. The house always wins. Just like in roulette, the bank always wins, okay? So it's ironic that the Swiss don't understand this. So just for my rather thick Nazi neighbors, the way the mafia is going to get more out of you than they pay you for the fucking, setting up the stupid electromagnetic machine guns is because you're going to get cancer and all sorts of really weird diseases. The doctors are going to lie to you and going to tell you, oh, this is this disease and that disease, everything apart from, well, you just managed to microwave your own bollocks, jackass. They're not going to say that. So these people are going to spend a lot of money on medication that ain't going to help them because it's not going to be for the right disease, or it's going to be treating the symptoms, like with cancer. You're not treating the cancer when you're, actually doing the typical cancer therapies. You're treating the symptoms of cancer, so big difference. Anyway, so this is one way. The other way they're going to get a lot out of these people, is when they have to pay a lot of money on home security, and to actually reinforce their own buildings against the next ring of perpetrators that's being set up around them. Because if I were the mafia, and based on the evidence I've seen, that's exactly what they're doing, I would set up a victim, then I would get the perps addicted to voyeurism and killing, right? And then I would set up an even bigger ring of new perps and new killers to kill off the people who killed off the victim, because then you kill off the witnesses, okay? So this is how you get a really big genocide really quickly, because the killers kill the killers, and in the end you will end up with just killers, basically. But that's what you want. You end up with the outer ring of just Masonic, in on it sort of people, and they're the ones who survive. But they are typically not going to be the ones who are in the killing in early on in the game, So my neighbors are to die, okay? And what's really funny is that I can leave Switzerland anytime, and I'm not going to count towards the 33% of the Swiss people. So they are, because they don't have anywhere to go. They're Swiss and they live their entire life here, and they probably don't speak foreign languages. So anyway, so that's just the context of what's going on here. But the bottom line is, I had to flee from my study because the machine gunning was just so insane. I had about, a few hours of still machine gunning, but not quite as bad. And then all the machine guns got set up. And now I'm being properly machine gunned. Last night, I slept again under my table on a lead blanket, and I mean really a lead blanket that's for radiological surgeries, with 3 aluminium blankets on top, with an extra thick aluminium blankets on top of that, and that wasn't enough. I was utterly machine gunned to bits, into my spine, into my womb, into my face. As soon as I lay down trying to sleep, I had light flashes. Like literally, you've got disco lights when you close your eyes, and that's because they shoot through your head and your brain, and your optical nerve gets triggered. So I was shot at from the north, from the east, from the west, and from the south, from freaking everywhere. So I had to I slept with baking trays, metal pans over my head, and with, I think, 6 big rubbish bags stuffed with old aluminium, so really thick aluminium layers. And that is how I could fall asleep. And then I was woken up this morning with just machine gunning, so banging of shots and then, slamming into my body. Yeah. That's the current situation. I was trying to get some work done to write up my court case, and in the end, the actual pain, and then they started electronically raping me, shooting me in the vagina. They shot my breasts raw and my brain, and then eventually I had to flee the house. Okay, I wanted to flee the house, and I went back downstairs to my car after I got all my stuff together, because fleeing the house means I'm packing up all of my computing equipment, because I can't leave anything here, because they'll come in and sabotage. And by the way, that's what Melanie has to do. That's what Ramola has to do. We all take our computing equipment and everything dear to us with us, because these Nazi psychopaths break in and sabotage absolutely everything that they can. So I left the home, and I went down to the garage, and I wanted to start my car. And I first noticed I can't even get into my car because the remote control doesn't work. But the little light flashed on the remote control, so there was plenty of battery. And then when I opened the door mechanically, I realized, the central locking doesn't trigger. So it's not the remote control, it's the car. So I got into the car, I put the key into the ignition, and this thing when you've maybe drained your battery, leaving the lights on. If you put in the key, you turn it, the dashboard typically comes on, or maybe some odd little faint little light somewhere, at least for a second. And then you maybe can't start your car. Well, I put it in and I turned the key, and there was nothing. It just didn't even, the car was just completely zero current. And that's spectacular, because I have, once or twice left the lights on and drained the battery like that. And I didn't actually manage to drain it so professionally so that every last electron has left the battery, But this is what happened. So I thought, oh, that's really interesting, And I thought, never mind, I've got a second battery because, hey, I'm a target, right? So I've got a second car battery, which is fully charged. So I thought, okay, let's just put the, the bag into the boot and then I can change the battery. And then I tried to open the boot and I realized that they had jammed the lock. So that I thought at that point, okay, that certainly wasn't the case. So somebody came in, drained the battery professionally, externally, and then they jammed the boot lock to make it clear that somebody had been there and actually sabotaged my car. Okay, so I spent half an hour replacing the car battery, and then I was good to go. I thought, okay, right, these guys pissed me off. So I distributed another 10 letters to my neighbors and then I ran out of envelopes, So anyway, all the neighbors around me now have received a letter. And, I still have to notify the big tower blocks to the south, but that's for another day. So yes, the neighbors have now received the cease and desist request. And with this, it's now, it already was legal beforehand, but it is now totally legal. The machine gunning has continued. So they are now willfully engaging in murder, something I knew, but now it's official. They know, I know. And now next thing will be we see each other in court. So anyway, the car sabotage, but then it just went on and on and on from there, so I drive my car. I am being machine gunned by the roving death squads run by Dr. Paul Zinniger for the Swiss Intel Nazi conglomerate. All sorts of stuff happened on the road, mostly being shot in the face, yada, yada, yada. At some point, I drove across to Germany where it just continued. So gang stalking, every shop I go into, I filmed the gang stalker who was kind enough to wait for me until I came, then do all the gang stalking. I'm a gang stalker. I'm even wearing black and white, so that, I also do look a bit Masonic, not just like your average tramp. And then, he was kind enough for me to wait when I came out again. So I managed to get good, I would call it textbook documentation of gang stalking bullshit. Okay. And it just went on and on and on and on. So anyway, this was Constance in just south of Germany. So this is the border between Switzerland and Germany. A lot of Swiss go over there because as soon as you cross the border to Germany, all the prices halve in real terms. Everything is exactly half the price. So there's a lot of traffic. Today was a beautiful day. So after, trying to get some stuff done in Constance, I thought, right, I'm going to stay and I'm just going to, stay outside my flat. And it's a good job I did. So I just drove out into the countryside. I went to a restaurant and there I was working. Interesting what happened. German intelligence followed me and then they poisoned my food. So I ordered schnitzel, just for dinner. And then as soon as I started eating it, I immediately got massive stomach cramps, which I thought, now that's really interesting because I have no food allergies and I'm, typically extremely tolerant towards food. So I don't have a sensitive stomach. Anyway, it was clearly some sort of poison. But then I realized, yeah, I do get these stomach cramps, but then they stop. If I just wait 2 minutes, it's okay. So it doesn't really seem like arsenic. It's something a bit more fancy. Anyway, I decided to just finish my schnitzel because I thought I already paid for this. If I survive this, given all the nanotech and shit that's already in me, who gives a fuck? So anyway, I finished the schnitzel and I was right because after, thinking I'm about to throw up, after waiting for 180 seconds, I was fine again. So some sort of really odd, just to inconvenience you sort of poison. I don't know what the fuck this is, Anyway, that's the sort of nonsense that you get from Intel. And then at that point, I already thought, most likely they have, involved the restaurant staff already. And sure enough, when I just wanted to change from outdoors to indoors, the waitress thought I'm leaving. So she blocked my path and then she said, "Oh, so where are you going next?" And I said, "I'm not actually leaving." And she said, "Oh, so who are you waiting for?" And I said, "I'm not actually waiting for anybody. But why exactly are you so interested?" And then she said, "Oh no, it's just so yeah, so unusual because you're here with a suitcase." And I said, "Yeah, because I carry stuff with me. You know, so gosh, goodness. I mean, you know, young woman, heck knows what they told her, and you just think, oh, gee, I could explain this to you, but your head would pop. So I just smiled and I thought, okay, never mind. But so this was the report. And then just one last thing in case you have that too. You know, you usually have this thing where, you know, the radio comes on by itself, or the radio changes to a threatening song or some, you know, sort of message. They're trying to pass some message, you know, on. So when I turned on the radio, you know, the radio changed to Gangster's Paradise. And I thought, well, not for long, chaps, but, you know, anyway. And then on the way back, you know, they turned on the light, you know, the little light that you have above your head. So, you know, I was just driving along and suddenly, ping, that light comes on. And I just thought, oh my goodness, somebody really urgently needed a wank, right? So anyway, that's the sort of nonsense that you get on day to day. But now on to really important matters, okay? I'm telling you all these little details just not to just bang on about my day, but so that you have little hints of what is normal when you're dealing with these weaponized fucktards, okay? So if your radio changes, Intel has sabotaged your radio, or they sabotaged your car, or they drained your battery, or they turn lights on and off as you're driving, that's normal, okay? And the reason why they do that is because they have to run a massive genocide, okay? And for that, they have to get a lot of really dumb young people hooked on Intel games, okay? This is a sort of gamification, okay? So they're trying to get these teenagers and people in their early 20s who look like they barely have got, you know, 2 brain cells, kind of to feel important about themselves. And, you know, so you do that with little games. And it's like, ooh, you can remote control a light in another car. You know, you learn how to put in a remote controllable light into another car when the person is sleeping. You know, it's like, ooh, you learn how to break into a home. You learn how to, you know, sabotage tires and deflate tires or sabotage brakes. And, you know, and these little totally, absolutely proletarian little morons think this is the greatest thing. And meanwhile, you've got the old, you know, handlers. So most of the time, one of the things I observe is that the young people are totally absorbed in this game, you know, and I think they are carefully led on to, as somebody once called it, the obstacle course, you know, they're carefully led on to and hyped up to just solve problems and, you know, just do all these little stupid things. Yeah, and these people usually seem very excited, and when they succeed, they just can't suppress a smile, like, yay, we succeeded, sort of stuff. So that's how you discover, typically, you know, these young Intel chaps, because they will have this kind of like glee. You know, they can't suppress it. And sometimes it's just a micro expression, but it's always there. With the older guys, I think it's all about the wanking. It's literally all about the perving and the wanking. So in the beginning, it's the kind of tomboy adventure, you know, sort of stuff. When you're older, it's just about yanking your dick. So when I look at these old guys, they have kind of like this pervy, yeah, I don't know how to describe it, like dodgy old geezer sort of. Yeah, ugh. Like every woman on the planet will know exactly what I mean, you know, so you get a lot of that. So typically, if you weren't a target, I remember in the olden days, you know, you just go somewhere and you just, you know, the old wankers are not triggered on you somehow, you know, you're just one of the females in the room. But when they have been specially empowered to, say, trigger your vaginal chips with their mobile phone, or, you know, burn your rectum, or I don't know what, you know, really shoot you in the breast, something they love to do, you know. It's like they can't touch your breasts because you would literally break their pathetic little arms. But when they can shoot at you with a pulsed energy projectile, it's like it makes their day. But they also can't suppress, they leak micro expressions, and they somehow, it's not really one of those, you know, Professor, what's his name, Ekman standard micro expressions. I think he's missing one. He's missing the dodgy old geezer perv micro expression. But I promise you, every single woman on the planet knows exactly what I'm talking about. So that's the micro expression that's not in the canon of the official thing, but you will recognize it. So when you see that, most likely it's a handler, it's a senior handler who's been in the game for a very long time. They do seem to recruit old people who are, you know, very, very young and in terms of the, you know, experience and with this. But the senior guys who, for them, this is their life, you know, it's just all about the perving. Okay, I'm telling you this because sometimes in a situation where very quickly, when you walk into the room, you have to map out the young fucktards and the dodgy old geezers who are in on the game. Maybe because they set up something that might be dangerous, or maybe because you just want to get their mugshots for court, okay? So this is how to do it. Look for the young guys first because they're going to be dumb as fuck and easy to spot. And then the old guys you spot because the young guys typically also throw a control glance to the old guys, almost like, Daddy, what should I do next? Sort of stuff, you know? And then these people will reply. So the old guys also keep an eye on everybody. But then, you know, once you've identified them, usually my second test is, you know, if I look even just slightly vulnerable, will they immediately start the, you know, yeah. So fail safe, I tell you, fail safe. If you look for the perv, you're going to get them. So that is how to map out the gang stalkers. Oh, yes, one more thing. If you have a street theater in front of you, the people controlling it will be behind you or they will be on the first floor, okay? So if you're somewhere in a city and you have a street theater in front of you, always look behind you first and then to the sides. Chances are the senior handlers behind you, keeping an eye on the scene, you know, the young fucktards, you know, have to play the, you know, do the obstacle course in front of you, senior perv behind you. And then sometimes they're kind of like, I call them the wingmasters, you know, people left and right who either walk in later or, you know, are there should the young fucktards fuck up and you pull a gun on them and you're about to shoot them, you know, that sort of stuff. So when you're mapping this out, look behind you first. All the action will be controlled from behind you because most people, when they see something shocking or surprising or weird, will most likely not immediately go, okay, granddad, you know, what the fuck? But this is what you should do. And you should train yourself as soon as you, well, when you can be bothered, okay? Train yourself. It's like a gun. You reach for your mobile phone, you put it into record mode, and then you turn around, okay? That's what I would do. You can talk about the scene, but then film the faces behind you. Chances are there will be some old guy reaching into his underpants, you know, just that moment. Okay, so that is that. Now, on to the court cases, okay, on to the court cases. And I've discovered something that I should have read a year ago. I just didn't have the time. And the way my mind works is, you know, such that I sometimes do the most obvious thing last, okay? But I've discovered a book that absolutely all of you who are going into court cases should buy, okay? I really say buy because it will be worth gold quoting from this book. I am a bit uncomfortable about the income it generates because I'm not 100% sure about the integrity of the person who's written it. But I think what is written in here, especially because she has a PhD and because it's in black and white, is certainly useful for court. So that aside, I think all of you should buy the global brain chip and Mesogens, right, called Nanomachines for Ultimate Control of False Memories. It's a very thin book, and it's kind of like the format of a workbook, and it's written by Dr. Hildegard Stanninger, whatever. She calls herself Dr. Hildy, okay? Now, the reason why I'm not 100% sure about who exactly she is because of what some victims said about her, and because she literally wanted to blackmail Dr. Millicent Black into buying the rights to her medical records for the next 10 years or something like that. So Millicent has the full story. I don't want to present something falsely, but there was, you know, an incident where when we listened to Millicent, all of us went, what? Yeah, so that sort of stuff. But anyway, so she wanted to have access to Millicent's medical records, you know. And I don't think that is in any way ethical. So this is why I'm really wondering. Now, this woman seems to have a lot of, I'm going to show you some stuff from this book, right? She seems to have a lot of insider knowledge and VIP access to research, especially victim cases and, you know, brain chips that have been removed from victims, which kind of, to me, smells like CIA, you know, so some sort of connection to CIA or you know, Department of Defense sort of stuff. So as in, you know, yeah, cozier than I'd like. But if you open it, inside the actual pictures, okay, there are pictures in here. This one, for example, is the pink one, is a brain meninoma or meninoma, in brackets, brain chip. This is what a brain chip looks like, okay? Reactive, I can't even pronounce it. Mesogen. Okay, so whatever. So this is a brain chip removed from somebody. This is a nasal bulb specimen, and you can see the sort of synthetic fiber. Okay, this is not snot. It's actually a, you know, microchip. And then there are other microchips. And the thing is, these are synthetic / organic, weird bioweapon materials found in people. Okay. And then there's here, for example, a spherical mesogen, as in, you know, one of these bioweapon chips, showing layers, and came from an eye tear duct. So that's the sort of shit you get in your eye tear ducts, in your brain, in your nose, and so on. Okay, and lots and lots and lots of stuff. Okay, also brains of these brain samples, stuff that came from ear canals, that's synthetic chips, and so on and so on and so on. And then you'll find the same sort of, if you look at this diagram, this looks like the X-ray fluorescence. I have to read it. I just started reading it, but it looks like the X-ray spectra that I took at the Paul Scherrer Institute for the Melanie's throat implant that showed a massive spike for titanium. And these ones show spikes for carbon and is this calcium? Hard to read, but anyway, okay. So it's the same sort of stuff, and you can check the content of this. Why am I telling you all this? Okay, the reason why I'm telling you all this is because there are actual pictures of what this Nazi bio-warfare bullshit looks like. So any judge who doesn't believe that you can have brain chips, okay, why don't you show them this pink goo, you know, and you say, well, that is a brain chip. Okay, so there's also other stuff. I think so. If you look at this brain chip, it just goes on and on and on. Okay, different samples of it. And then it says cut sphere so hard that a diamond cutting saw had to be used. So you've got a piece of rock in your brain that's so hard that you can't cut it unless you use a diamond cutter. Well, it's probably not healthy for your brain. Do you see what I mean? And it probably is not organic material. Yet people have been found with this shit in their brains. So yes, the reason why I want you to buy this book, okay, it's on Amazon, Global Brain Chip and Mesogens, is because it has a lot of references. Let me go to the references. It's very thin, as I said, and it's the font is massive. So, you know, even if you have, if you need glasses, you can read it without glasses. So what I want to say with that, it's not, you know, so academic and so dense you can't work your way through. And then also it has absolutely pages with references here, okay, which you can also quote and quote. In other words, I'm saying you should buy this, and should some retarded police officer with maybe, you know, primary school education tell you that you're, I don't know what, funny in the head because you're talking about brain chips, you go, oh, look at this. Okay, monkey, look here. Yes. And you do the same thing with judges, attorney generals, or psychiatrists, who we know are mostly intel agents, you know. So forget talking to psychiatrists because they will never see sense because they are paid not to. Okay, so that's one thing I want to say to you. When I opened this, I was literally just, wow. Most of the time, you're very close to reaching for a sick bag because this is this is totally Nazi. Now, another thing that's very interesting, for those of you who suspect that you've got eye implants, this is an eye implant. And I know from scans done by a close co-worker, Melinda Kidder. So Melinda Kidder is a private investigator who works closely with Dr. Hildegard Steininger, or used to, because I think she stopped scanning victims now. That's what I heard. But she found the eye implants, you know, when you feel like the intelligence can see what you can see, you might have an eye implant. And the eye implants, to me as a physicist, look like thin film technology. And you can find the eye implants by just shining black light. This is UV light onto your face, and your eyes will suddenly reflect in turquoise and purple, not natural colors. And what this means is that there's a thin, transparent film, like a crystal structure sort of thing, on your eye that has been placed there, okay? And that can read out, you know, the photons, so the light that you're seeing, I would guess. But it's reflecting other frequencies, you know, higher frequencies like UV light differently from your normal eye, which is why your normal eye, not your normal eye, why your eye with the implant suddenly lights up as turquoise and purple, okay? So if you feel that the intelligence agencies can see through your eyes, a really quick and cheap and easy way to do, to test for that is to buy, it's called blacklight, I think, a UV torch, and just don't shine it, please, not in your eye, not for half an hour, but, you know, it should be okay if you just briefly, you know, irradiate your eye and then maybe ask somebody to actually see what it looks like, or you take a picture or something. You know, I'm not sure how cameras and LCD displays work, but it should work. So experiment around and find out, and then this is one way to check for these implants. But anyway, it's noted here, and the reason why I brought it up is because the caption of the image is "Note Eye of Horus Effect," as published in the 2009 National Registry of Environmental Professional Annual Conference. Okay. So this was the Eye of Horus Effect by Hildegard Steininger. So this is Horus here, you know, and the reason why this is important is because the cartel is, and they're totally obsessed with everything to do with the pharaohs, you know, so anything pharaonic. And then they want to imitate, you know, all these, you know, little images and the hieroglyphs, because they think, ooh, we're like the pharaohs and we have to do everything. And we're descended from the pharaohs and we're so special. And it's all about, you know, pyramids and sphinxes and Eye of Horus, all-seeing eye sort of thing. Okay, so this is why this is important. And from my demeanor, you can already tell how, you know, absolutely amazing I find all this nonsense. But anyway, so this is one thing why this book is really, really important for you, okay? I just read this today as I was sitting in the restaurant, you know, out in the German countryside, and every page had a wow effect. So the other thing you need to know is that when you're in court, you can quote books, and lawyers frequently do. It's not just legal books. You can quote expert books, and Dr. Hildegard Steininger, for better or worse, is an expert. Okay, so you can quote her, and you can certainly photocopy images from books to get it home to judges that this is real. And I'm sorry, I mean, I'm not going to show you the entire book because I think that would be violating copyright. But, you know, gosh, they are just wow, wow, wow images, you know, everywhere. And these are images taken with microscopes, maybe even electron microscopes, and then, you know, different X-ray methods and so on. But the point is that this is all real. Now, the other thing I would like to draw your attention to in this book, and this is something that you get when you buy this book, is a list of perpetrators, okay? Because you get, for example, an entire list of all the companies that are involved with the DARPA is involved, so with the DARPA research, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, catchy name, and then, you know, all the other Nazi companies, because these are Nazi companies doing Nazi experiments on unsuspecting victims, being pretty much most of us. So that's one thing. Then there's the quote of the Barack Obama's Brain Initiative, okay, and that's where you get a batch of other perpetrators. So, but the point is, you get it black on white, okay. So if you're looking for respondents in your court case, as in who the fuck to blame for your misery, you know, as you're being, like me, manipulated for chips, you need to find the respondent. The intel agencies are involved 100% because only they have the ability to have the roaming Nazi gang stalkers, right? To have the weapons, access to the weapons, to surround your home, break into your home, hack your computers, you know, and all of this together resides with the intelligence agencies. If you have just, I don't know what the what's it called, the foods and something in administration, what's it called in the US? God, you know what I mean. If you're in the US, you know exactly. Yeah, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. Now, the FDA itself is not running the gang stalkers, but the FBI is, and Lockheed Martin is, okay? But they do other stuff. They kind of sign off on the Nazi warfare and Nazi experiments, and they find legal excuses why it's okay for, you know, for Intel to conduct these Nazi warfare experiments. So they are involved in the cover-up, and then gang stalking is done by somebody else. But what I'm saying is, when you're going into court, you need respondents, you know. So who do you know, defendants rather. And then the question is, who do you sue? Who is at fault? So the intel agencies go on the list, and then in another entire massive list of people involved can go on. And the beauty is that when you quote this book, you don't have to have insider knowledge. You can just quote somebody who has and who was kind enough to write it down, put it down in writing, and put their name to it. So that's what you get with this book, you see. You buy this book, and then you can photocopy it for your court case, okay? And then you put it straight in, and then you put the list of respondents. And then another thing I tell you is that don't be afraid to put a long list of respondents, okay? In fact, it's even better if you put a long list of respondents, because some of those must be involved, okay? You as a Holocaust victim can't be expected to find out who exactly is involved. That's actually the task of the police, but the police is captured and part of the criminals, okay? So in this sort of situation, you just put them down. And the other reason why it's really good to have a long list of respondents is because, you know, I mean, you're being tortured, and your children are probably being tortured or probably were chipped. So you can imagine that there are absolutely millions and millions of damages. So the more CEOs you put on, you know, the more they can afford the damages. Do you see? So it's very, very good to have very, very rich defendants when you're suing, you know, for many, many millions, because this is all premeditated Nazi crimes. These people know it's wrong. They know it's a crime. They just don't give a shit, because some of them are psychopathic and just mentally, you know, damaged, and the other people are just that corrupt. Okay. And everybody involved knows that this is a crime. You know, that's why they have to bend over backwards and go through all these hoops to make it appear legal, because they really know it's not, you know, it's not at all. So this is what I wanted to say, okay? Big, 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 big news, okay? I finally found somebody who put this in black and white, and this is worth gold. You just put it in, okay? And this is beautiful, because suddenly the entire piece is assembled. Dr. Ronnie Kilder, before she was murdered by Kjell on instructions of probably Kjell Grandhagen, who was head of Norwegian Intel at the time, before she was murdered, she revealed that Anglo-Saxon intelligence is working together. So the NSA is working with GCHQ to set up this electromagnetic torture system, okay? She even gave a presentation at the 33rd International Conference for Military Medicine in Helsinki, okay? That's how she presented it. So she presented publicly, and it wasn't contested, okay? It's true that NSA works with GCHQ. Now, DARPA is involved in this Nazi bullshit. The NSA is involved in this Nazi bullshit. They work with GCHQ, so all the Five Eyes are involved. In other words, if you're anywhere within the Five Eyes territory and you are experiencing these Nazi crimes, then you can put the same respondents on. okay? Because they're bound to be involved. So, okay, that's settled. So, for example, if I'm being attacked in the UK, as I was, and as I still am every single time I go there, and I notice, oh, I seem to have brain chips and head chips and all sorts of funky chips, nasal chips, ear canal chips, you know, everything is in here, right? The nasal chips, the ear canal chips, the brain chips, all here with photographs. And they seem to be triggered by the telecommunication network. Telecommunication sounds like GCHQ and NSA. And then I can say, well, it seems like I've got a claim against DARPA as well, and against all the other institutes under international law. And no war has been declared. And even if a war were declared, I'm just a civilian. I'm a non-combatant. So it very much looks like war crimes, you know, even if it were a war, but it's not even a war. So it just looks like massive crimes against humanity, you know, being committed by DARPA, by the Food and Drug Administration, by many, many other people. And through the link of NSA and GCHQ and that lovely, lovely international crime cartel called the Five Eyes, I have a claim against these fuckers, which means a lot of money, potentially. Do you understand? And of course, right now, everybody wants to make you believe like, oh, you could never get them. The courts are so corrupt, you can never get justice. But that's not actually true, because the judges are not quite as stupid as the intel agents. And that's because when you're a judge, you have to work through really boring, really hard stuff all day long, and you just get stuff, you know, basically crap for it. You get a good wage, but it's not that great. So the people you tend to get in the judiciary, they might be corrupt, but on average, the distribution, you know, is shifted towards the hardworking, clever side, you know, who is willing to put up with a lot of crap and not get much back for it. Whereas in Intel, it seems to be mostly about fucking and killing. Okay, so you tend to get people who are very psychopathic, but they just need to have a lot. That's why you need to have all this perving and masturbation, because these people are basically geared towards fucking and killing is their day job, fucking their reward. So it's all about the wanking. Okay, so this is why. So you get the kind of psychopathic, moron, masturbation obsessed people in Intel, and you get the rather hardworking, intelligent people in judiciary on average. I'm not saying that they're, you know, they don't overlap. They really do. But you have this big difference. Now, what that means concretely is that at some point, the judges think, well, you know, it seems like we've been working on really dull, really hard jobs for decades. Meanwhile, our colleagues in Intel have been jacking one off. And now they're asking us to sign off on their Nazi global genocide that is pretty public by now. And it's a genocide that's probably going to include us, because we're going to be the judges who are going to sign off on that. So we're going to be part of the people involved and know exactly what's going on because we're clever. So we would have to be killed off to silence the last remaining people who could ever become whistleblowers, right? So it doesn't take that long for a judge to work that out, okay? And at that point, they think, well, we could either go with humanity and humanity's path towards the future, which is putting a stop to this. Why? Because all the models say the crime cartel is being wound down. And all the official notes say that the Crown Corporation is bankrupt. So a judge has a choice to go with the bankrupt organized crime cartel that's about to be wound down, or to go with the victims. Well, some judges don't get it. So Judge Holgate, for example, really didn't get it. But I don't think he's, you know, the cleverest one out there, as he revealed himself. I think there are cleverer judges out there, and those certainly going to get it, and they're going to have to side with humanity, not least because the best game theory model on the planet predicting what's going to happen says that the crime cartel is going to be wound down at 95% certainty. So at 95% confidence, which means, yeah, it's going to get wound down. It's basically a mathematical certainty, okay? So this is where we are. So this is for this reason why you shouldn't listen to all those paid absolutely moronic, weaponized fucktards that you find on YouTube and on Twitter and on blogs making comments, and these comments are paid for by Intel, saying, oh, the judiciary is so corrupt you could never get justice. No, you can get justice. And actually, you can get justice rather fast when you make your case to a judge and you get into his head, not the neurotech way, more like the logical reasoning sort of way. And you explain it carefully to him that he's got a choice of either being, eternally fucked if he sides with the crime cartel, or actually help to wind this down and become one of the, 21st century heroes. And the judge knows that, it's pretty late to make a career in, I don't know what, running brothels. So he's probably going to have to stay a judge until he retires. And then he also knows he's very public. So anything he decides will stay on the books. There will be ever more publicity as this breaks. And he will either look abysmal and then his career is over. And maybe he also gets shot by angry victims. Or he can actually be on the side of the victims in the future. Okay, so this is it. This is where we're right now. And the clever people and the smart money is already on the up curve. The dumb money, which includes Swiss Intel, German Intel, and all of my neighbors, is still siding with the crime cartel that's about to be wound down, okay? But get on the right track, people, okay? Get on the right track. So I have to look up how much this book costs, right? I don't think it costs the earth, but it's certainly worth the money because you get color images of brain chips. I'll show you the same one I've already showed. Okay, brain chips and nasal chips, right? Big color images that you can photocopy and put straight into your court bundle, or you scan it and you turn it into a PDF, and I'll show you how to make a court bundle. You look really professional. And then that's it. Then you've got your respondents. Okay, so this is what I got out of it today, but I got more out of it today. And that's when I literally almost fell off my chair. Okay, because I opened this, there's a dedication, and then I started reading the introduction. Okay, and it was on the second paragraph where my jaw just went clonk. And the reason why my jaw went clonk is because I was in this rather awkward situation that I know for sure I was gang stalked in Oxford by Lord Jonathan Sumption, who's by now a Supreme Court judge. I also figured out that he was university pals with Sir John Scarlett, who became head of MI6. So I worked out, okay, if I'm being mutilated and assaulted all across, Europe, in a sort of MI6 sort of way, and my main stalker, who appeared over and over and over and over and over and over, including in Munich, 50 meters from my home, if he was the university friend of the then, later on, head of MI6, then that's kind of explained, okay? I won't have a hard time getting it across to a judge. But then I also figured out later, as I was writing up my case, that I'd actually, by just having memory flashbacks and actually putting the puzzle pieces together, I figured out that I'd already had brain chips pretty much from the year 2000. Okay, I figured out that there were near fatal synthetic telepathy experiments that British Intel ran on me in 2011 in Oxford, and that French Intel ran on me in 2010 in France. Okay, 2 car accidents, near fatal, and the only reason why I survived is because I had this unnaturally super fast internal dialogue that was computer steered, as I now figured out, that just saved my life. It was a totally unnatural thing, and it saved my life in both cases. So this means I was hooked up through my brain chips to the synthetic telepathy network that's being run by Intel. That's basically the telecommunication network interfacing with your ear chips and your brain chips. Okay, I was hooked up to that at least from the year 2010 onwards. And then I worked back and I was like, oh yeah, that was really odd. And now what I know about synthetic telepathy, I was like, hang on. I think I was already an Intel, puppet and an Intel little experimentation toy for the geriatric old wankers, at least in the year 2010. And then I suddenly had this flashback and I remembered, oh yeah, I remember being stalked by a bunch of pervy old geezers the first week I went up to Oxford. Of course, I now remember. I remember being photographed in my face as I opened the gate and went into Hertford College by an old wanker waiting there for me. I suddenly remembered being photographed walking down the street by a guy who behaved oddly. And I was like, okay, good, okay. So then I suddenly thought, hang on, I'm certainly, a sex trafficking slave and a human experimentation slave of British intel and have been since the year 2010. But how does Oxford come into it? And then I thought probably Oxford is where British intel runs all the Nazi experiments. And I had to somehow prove the link to Oxford. So imagine I'm opening this book and I'm reading the second paragraph, and then I suddenly read the following sentences. Currently, we have now the interface of artificially intelligent medical devices that will treat cancer and critical care patients remotely. Okay. Now let me read this sentence again. And now, put on not your normal person hat, put on a new hat, which is probably, protected so that you can think clearly, metal protection for your brain. Put that on and put your cartel signaling detection hat on, okay? Now, cartel signaling is two things. It's the, putting symbols on like the all-seeing eye and the double pillars of Freemasonry and doing all this, jiggle. But then it's also double speak. It's also code words that mean something to us muggles in normal world, but means something else in, intel wizardry knob yanking world. Okay, that's double speak. So let me read the sentence again and try to detect the double speak. Currently, we have now the interface of artificially intelligent medical devices that will treat cancer and critical care patients remotely. Okay. Now, what if critical care patients was a code word? To us, it means people who are critically ill and they need the care of the medical industry or doctors, But critical care for the cartel, what would be critical care for the cartel? Well, it would be those people with a functioning brain that they don't control yet, and that, maybe people who are intelligent enough to cotton on to the bullshit schemes and these Nazi schemes that these nutters are up to. So critical care is the critically important care the cartel has to give towards those people who might become dangerous to them one day, like me or anybody else, like a whistleblower from Intel or a whistleblower from police or anybody. We are critical care and we are patients because they're going to give us the treatment. Do you see? This is how doublespeak works. Yes? Do you understand now? And when you read this book, my word, okay, when you put on your doublespeak lenses, maybe think of it in terms of glasses, you put them on and it's like, oh my God, what does this book tell me? So this is how you have to think. Okay, so let's start now. And now comes the bombshell. Currently, we have now the interface of artificially intelligent medical devices. Artificially intelligent medical devices. So medical devices with AI. It means they have a little brain and they think for themselves, those little dears. Okay, so you have chips in you that have a will of their own or an intellect of their own. And perhaps one day they become faster and much more lethal than your organic brain, and it's already inside you. Is that reassuring? Okay. So artificially intelligent medical devices that will treat cancer. And maybe also remember that cancer might be artificially induced by the cartel, which would explain the absolutely exploding cancer rates. Okay. So treat cancer. So in other words, treating cancer with these artificially intelligent medical devices would mean that it's a business scheme, a business plan whereby the cartel gets you to have cancer and then it treats you. Okay? So it's what Lloyd Blankfein called a market maker. They're a market maker. They make themselves a market by just irradiating you with microwave weapons while you're sleeping, or by giving you a mobile phone really cheaply, and you put it in your pockets, really nice and close to your genitals, and you irradiate your reproductive organs, you know, and then they say, oh, you've got cancer. Well, you know, here, we've got these artificially intelligent medical devices, because literally there's no other way to treat cancer, you know. I mean, forget about anything else. You literally have to have these little chips in you that think for themselves, and only that way can you cure cancer. Do you see what I mean? This is why it's really fucking important that you read this book and that you start thinking this sort of stuff, because you know what I'm trying to tell you? They're trying to kill you in a way that you will spend all your money in the process when you're dying. Do you understand? And this entire thing is artificial. It's a business plan. It's a money-making scheme, okay? And it's written here, black and white, if you can read it, okay? So that was already me thinking, oh my God, you know? So I was sitting in this restaurant today in Germany, in the countryside, going like, what? And then comes the next sentence, you know? The universities of Nottingham, Oxford, and Warwick are the leading blue sky research into artificially intelligent medical devices that will improve the treatment of cancer and intensive care patients, wound care, and even paralyzed people. Is aimed to provide more personalized, accurate, and timely care, and ultimately save lives in the world of precision medicine. Now, one of the things I noticed in this book by Dr. Hildegard Stanninger is that at some places she seems to totally lose all knowledge of grammar. And that odd punctuation and odd grammar is typical of cartel signaling, okay? So this paragraph right there, because at some point grammar goes woof out of the window, it means that there's a second meaning. And to us muggles, it's just like, oh, there must be a spelling mistake, or Dr. Stanninger is not, you know, her forte is not really grammar. But I mean, she does speak English, okay? So there must be something else. So to the people in, you know, Intel wizardry world, you know, where everybody really loves to touch themselves, this means something else. It means there's something encoded in that paragraph that you need to pay attention to. So you have to read that paragraph again. But, you know, fact is that now on black on white, I have Dr. Hildegard Stanninger being kind enough to put it into writing that Oxford, amongst, you know, others like Nottingham and Warwick, is involved in this entire blue sky Nazi experimentation scheme. This is the missing link. I was looking for an expert to quote in court to explain to a judge how it came that little foreigner me, right, who doesn't fit into the Nazi families of Germany nor the Nazi families of Britain, ends up being used by Oxford like a little guinea pig with no human rights, absolutely nothing, being just shredded to death for some Nazi experiments. So voila, here it is, black and white. I have been picked, most likely, because I have no connection to the Nazi families, because I don't matter in the world of Freemasonry, because none of my fathers and grandfathers were ever Freemasons, because they actually were honest, hardworking people, and because they were also on the takedown list of the Romanian Securitate, the Romanian secret service known for its utter ruthlessness and total stupidity. These people were mostly illiterate, right? But they could kill. So anyway, that explains it. And then Oxford is, you know, involved in this Nazi research. They need little guinea pigs, human guinea pigs. Who do they pick? Little Catherine. And once you pick little Catherine for human experimentation, when she comes up to Oxford as a, you know, starry-eyed little undergraduate, thinking this place is all about learning and cutting edge research. Oh yeah, cutting edge research. Does that ring something in the terms of double speak? Cutting edge, like a guillotine, it's cutting, you know, the victim's heads off. Okay, cutting edge research, the bleeding edge of research. It doesn't sound so nice anymore, does it? So, you know, I go up to Oxford And then they think, oh, great, look, her entire family was on the takedown list of the Romanian Securitate, which was, as I've learned now, entirely run by British intelligence. So she was actually, my family has been on the MI6 takedown list for generations. And now they're stupid enough to send little Catherine, pay us, the criminals, a lot of money to educate her or not. Frankly, if you've ever been to Oxford, you know that you're not getting an education, you're getting access to a library, and the odd hour of actual, teaching, but mostly you have to do it yourself. And then my parents paid absolutely lots and lots of money in tuition fees to the crime cartel, the Intel crime cartel, to MI6, to the same people who were asset stripping us, me and my people back in Transylvania, were murdering us in Transylvania. So now I come to Oxford, I go to to basically the eye of the storm, right? The eye of the storm. There I am in the, jaw of the lion, and the lion just goes, tasty. This is how it comes about. And this is now black on white. So now you probably ask, what the F does that have to do with me? Because maybe you didn't go to Oxford. Be lucky, be glad you didn't go to Oxford. Okay, totally not worth the money. So if you didn't go to Oxford, maybe you went to Warwick, or maybe you went to Nottingham. Or even if you didn't go to Warwick and Nottingham, then you're probably, lucky that you weren't recruited as a torture slave as an undergraduate. You can still buy this book, and then you know that you can also sue Oxford and Warwick and Nottingham, if the sort of experiment that's being done to you has even a whiff, a faint connection to something that they are researching, you've got a claim. And I tell you, there's a lot of money in Oxford, really. So if you're looking for a defendant with a lot of money to pay your damages, put Oxford on the list, will you? Because sure as hell I am, So that's what I'm telling you, okay? So, I hope you understand. And then I didn't actually have time to read much of this, but every single page has so much doublespeak. So, oh God, I left my actual notes outside, so I won't get them now. I leave it to you so that you can make up your own mind, not being biased or primed by what I'm saying, is doublespeak and what isn't. But one of the things I can tell you should do is you should look for paragraphs where the grammar breaks down halfway through. You should look for odd punctuation. You should look for the misspelling of names, especially really, really well-known names. Typically, that's cartel signaling. And then, of course, there's the caveat that I'm not sure if Dr. Stanninger put it in or the CIA put it in, who maybe she works for, or maybe she doesn't know she works for them. But either way, they want to, use her book to send certain messages to the wizardry crowd, while keeping it away from the muggles, which is us, not if you're not in the Masonic architecture, or if you're not, in organized crime, you're one of the muggles, you basically have no value to the New World Order. You're the people who they prey on. You're the people who they want to asset strip, okay, and your children. And they want to rape your daughters, and they want to, anally rape your sons, and they want to take all your children and hook them up to a brain-reading, brain-influencing, synthetic telepathy network. That, I'm afraid, is the reality, okay? So this is my big discovery today. I hope this was worth your time. I think I banged on for quite a long time. I can see that there's an absolutely staggering 113 people in the chat. So let me just throw a glance at what has been talked about in the chat. I have to say, guys, I'm so impressed because in the very beginning, when we started all this, unfortunately today I was talking so much I couldn't actually see all your questions, but I am reading, I'm scanning them after that, and I have to say I'm so impressed by everybody in the chat, because we went from, I remember when we first started, it was all just infiltrators talking nonsense and disinfo and absolutely everything. And now when I look at the chat, it's really supportive. People are actually supporting each other positively. They're giving excellent information. And, you know, and they're really turning on all the infiltrators and all the absolutely stupid trolls, you know, so it's getting ever more sophisticated. So the next step up in the chat is to spot this information, you know. And one of the things I encourage you all to do, and now it's even easier when they have the playback of the chat, but just make sure that certain messages don't disappear. But one of the things I recommend that you do is that you screenshot, you know, or you highlight certain comments. If you think it's disinformation, it's totally fine putting it into your court case. And that is because when you have a global Holocaust going on, when you have victims who are being tortured and mutilated and absolutely taken to bits, and their families and their children and their parents and their pets are murdered, it is a crime against humanity to go into a victim community and start to mislead them, try to dishearten them, try to have any sort of disinformation campaign, okay? Or especially conduct psychological terrorism. It is a crime against humanity. So all the accounts that are posting, you can screenshot them and you can make those respondents as well in your court case, as in you can bring damages against them as well. And in the end, all these people can, you know, will have to pay into one big pot of money out of their own private expenses. And the other thing you should know is that the UK brought in legislation, which is, what's it called? The Something Proceeds from Crime Act, you know. It basically says, or tries to shift humanity towards the viewpoint that no one should be entitled to profit financially from crime. There's still massive problems about actually enforcing it and clawing money back from drug dealers and human traffickers and all this sort of stuff, but we're getting there, okay? So this is it. Right, guys, I have now spoken at least for an hour, if not longer. I don't want to tax your patience any longer, but I've got a couple of announcements to make, okay? This is really important. Let me get the first one out of the way. The very first one is my PayPal stopped working because PayPal, they seem to behave like criminals, and therefore I will call them criminals. That's my personal conclusion based on how they have acted. I want to warn you that PayPal's terms and conditions contain a phrase that they can bar anybody from their service for any reason or for no reason at all. And this sentence, any reason or no reason at all, appears in our terms and conditions. And that's the way of the cartel, okay? This is a blanco check for wanton discrimination. And we all know who is going to be on the receiving end of that, you know, and it hit me. Doesn't matter because that's wonderful. So there's a Romanian proverb. I don't actually speak Romanian. I'm Hungarian from Romania, from Transylvania. But my parents speak Romanian, and the really wonderful little folklore, you know, proverbs, they translated for me. So I happen to know that there's a Romanian proverb saying every kick in the butt is a step forward, right? So if you're being kicked in the butt really hard, you kind of fall forward. So you take a step forward. So this wonderful kick in the butt from PayPal incentivized me to look for alternative payment providers. And I discovered that if I just use TransferWise instead of PayPal, I don't have to pay PayPal's fees, which are shockingly high. You know, I'm about to finish the accounts for last year. Sorry about the delay, but they will be able to read how I spent every single penny that I received, okay? What measuring equipment, what, you know, protective shielding, what trip did I take, what hotel, why did I go there, which victim was helping, what did I get out of this? All of this will become transparent. I'm sorry I couldn't do it last year. Last year was a total holocaust for me. I struggled to cope. I still struggle to cope. But you will get full disclosure how I spent the donation money. But you will also see how much money PayPal creamed off, and it's shockingly high, okay? Now with TransferWise, it's actually mild. It's okay, you know, they have no fees. And the way they do it is that they give you a bank account number. If you want to collect donations in US dollars, you get a US bank account number. It's not actually a bank account that they offer, but it's a bank account that pools all the money. So if you address it to the right person with the right bank account, I'll get the donation. So it's a payment service that kind of has a front, which is are these bank numbers that you can, send money to, and it will arrive here. So now I am in the fortunate position that I can offer a donation service to US donors, where it costs them nothing and I get 100% of the money that they send. I can do the same thing with UK donors and with donors in the European Union, in the Eurozone. And for those people, I think by now, certainly in the Eurozone and in Britain, if you do a bank account to bank account transfer, it costs you nothing, unless you're with a really shit bank, but typically it costs you nothing. So it means that I get 100% of your donations. Then I'll get it in the currency that you donated it in, So British pounds, US dollars, or, euros, which is great because, Melanie is in the Eurozone, and my donations are also used to support the JIT members, other JIT members. So if anybody needs help, I pass it to Millicent or Karen, or, we get something for Melanie, or this is how it works, okay? So I'm trying to, look at what's the most useful and then really, make the most of the money. And this means anything that's in US dollars, we can use for Millicent and so on, So, I really try to get the most out of the money. And this means that way I collect the money. If there's an emergency, and Millicent needs money, or somebody else needs money, or, Bramola or Karen in the US zone, the money is there, And similarly, otherwise, if I really need the money, I can do a bank transfer, so a transfer between US dollars to Swiss francs. And actually, the rate that TransferWise offers seems to beat most of what the banks do, because the banks cream off a lot of stuff. So if you want to find out more, I recommend that you go to my website. Let me just briefly share my screen, because this is useful information, and I'll repeat it from now on. But this is useful for absolutely everybody. So go to stop007.org. If you go to how can you help, or how you can help, I've changed. This is still the PayPal donate button, but I'll remove it soon, okay? But this is now not linking to PayPal anymore. This is linking to an explanation of how you can donate, okay? And there's a link to TransferWise. Now, the thing is, if you use this link, instead of using Google and going straight to TransferWise, should you sign up with TransferWise, I get kickbacks that cost you nothing. In other words, you make a free donation to me if you are using this link to connect with TransferWise, okay? And if you hover your cursor over the link on the bottom left, so down here, okay, but it will disappear as soon as I move my cursor. So look at the bottom left. You can see that the link reads transferwise.com/u/Katherine H182. And this means it's a private link that I generated. And this means if you sign up and you spend something like, or you make a bank transfer for $200 whatever dollars, it's not going to cost you $200. You've just moved $200 to some other purpose, right? You can still receive the $200 on the other end. But either way, I think I get something like $50 whatever dollars in reward just for you to sign up. But it costs you nothing, you see. So if you sign up and you start using TransferWise, what you're doing is you are donating a $50 whatever dollars or euros to the JIT, and it costs you nothing. Okay, so this is the advantage of using this link. It still gets you through to transferwise.com, which you can see in the link itself. Okay, so there's no hidden nothing. I'm not cheating you. I just get free kickbacks. And these free kickbacks are great because, in a sense, these companies are then also bootstrapping us and crowdfunding us, okay? So this is one thing you should know. The other thing that you should know is that if you want to donate, it's not actually necessary to have for you to have an account with TransferWise. And that's because here I explain how you can donate from the US in US dollars, from the UK in British pounds, and from Europe in euros. And in each case, you just make a simple bank transfer for free to a bank account. And the only thing I ask you in each case is please put the purpose of the transfer as donations, okay? because then here with the tax authorities, I can explain that this is actually donations, you know. And then at the bottom, I also, under the fuck PayPal section, I highlight the bit in their terms and conditions where they say PayPal reserves the right to deny access to the PayPal service to any individual or business for any reason or no reason at all, right? That's the cartel's fuck you clause, at which point we should say, no, fuck you, PayPal. So that's one thing I have to announce. I would like to announce. The second thing, and then I'll really let you go, okay, because it's late. It's 2 a.m. now. The other thing I would like to announce, and I will make an extra video about that, is I am looking more and more into the brainwash of children. On last week's Techno Crime Fighters Forum, I already hinted at that I was watching children's programs on Netflix and analyzing them for cartel signaling, and especially cartel brainwash. And I am horrified. I am absolutely horrified at what I find. Okay. I already knew that Disney films had, you know, hidden penises and everything, like hidden in the actual imagery. But most of the time, I consider that to be benign, simply because I myself have been through primary school education and I know what children draw on the walls of, you know, toilet cubicles by themselves. So I'm pretty sure that in primary school, no one's going to get shocked or traumatized by the drawing of a penis. Okay, so that's mild. What's not mild at all is subliminal messaging and priming towards very insidious brainwash, whereby children are being set up to think that intelligence agency work, killing people, spying on people, you know, is cool. It's absolutely not cool. And the other thing that is, you know, kind of children have a propensity to think that's kind of exciting is when you say, oh, this is a secret, you know? So children, because they are new in the world and they want to discover the world's secrets, well, because everything to them is a secret. Like, how does this work? They have no idea. They know that everybody else is in on it, but they aren't. So to them, it's exciting to finally be in on something themselves that maybe the adults are not in on. But this is super insidious because we all know, and as a systems analyst, I know that anything secret is by definition going to lead to something criminal eventually. That is just by the laws of system physics, okay? So when you are brainwashing children into thinking that secret organizations or secret codes or secret this or that, or having a secret is cool or exciting or something that should be, I don't know what, yeah, just supported and just expanded, that's really bad. And when you know that there's an entire secret architecture of an organized crime cartel, if you have this kind of like fetishization of secrets and secret organizations, along with sexualization, then you really know that these kids are being set up by a human sex trafficking ring that's working through the intel agencies, you know? So this is what I discovered, and I discovered that en masse. Okay, so that has got me so upset. I'm already upset about the human trafficking, but when I see how it has seeped into the absolute mainstream, and how children's cartoons are getting ever more sexualized, ever more geared towards trauma-based mind control, I am absolutely shocked. So I am putting out a massive campaign. And I'm asking, especially all those white hats and intel people all out there who I know that they're supporting us, I ask you to please, you're probably already doing it, right? But for those who are not, and for those who are, I'm asking you for my sake or for the sake of humanity to up the priority. Let's also bring the children in and up the actual, rescue operation for the children and the uncovering of child trafficking, because that is an absolute emergency. As we're speaking, there are hundreds of thousands of children being trafficked. Okay, I'm not exaggerating. We are looking for hundreds of thousands of missing children. They are being held somewhere. They are certainly being held in, as people pointed out, in the underground cities, yeah, for sure. But it's not just the underground cities and underground bases. They're literally held all around us. They're being held in hospitals, where they're being put through trauma-based mind control. I know that from systems analysis, but I also know that from the reports of victims. Okay, they're also being I've heard reports of victims saying that they're being taken to hospitals or were taken to hospitals when they were children, where they were locked away for, you know, something typically like 10 days or 14 days or something like that. So between 4 to 10 days, sometimes 14 and stuff like that, for entire program of trauma, you know. That's part of trauma-based mind control. But this means that big hospitals everywhere have these trauma-based mind control facilities. I also specifically would like to flag Hospital Erasmus in Brussels, because what they did with Melanie was shocking, and they were professional. They knew what they were doing. It was just like tuck, 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 like an intel operation that they do 50,000 times, you know, just unfolding. So Hospital Erasmus, I think, check the basement, check any sort of doors that lead to underground tunnels, underground networks, maybe connecting to, I don't know, some sort of underground gang rape and gang murder places, mass murder places, maybe where NATO generals and people related to NATO, to the European Parliament, or to this sort of stuff that's in Brussels can refresh their control files. Okay, super, super, super urgent. And then, unfortunately, and this is me being totally stupid, there was a really hot trail, because when I was on booking.com, okay, I remember seeing, as I was booking a hotel to stay in Brussels to work with Melanie, I remember seeing in 2017 an advert for a hotel in Brussels that was advertising it, and on booking.com, where you have a lot of images from the hotel, all the different rooms and the bar and, you know, and all that. One of the images showed a room that had many, many little rather short beds, like for children. And the beds, it had very interesting headboards. The headboards were wood, kind of like antique looking, heavy duty looking, like expensive looking. And it was kind of like oak kind of thing, you know, glazed oak. And then it looked just like oak panel with like a pattern, like a ridge in the middle. And then you thought, oh, it's just these really short oak antique sort of beds, like a dozen of them in the room. And then one of them actually had the headboard opened. And what it was inside a panel of mirrors. Do you see? So it was a mirror of the headboard. And then when you opened it, it was either side mirror. Why would you want to have mirrors around the bed of a child? Unless you wanted to rape the child and watch yourself doing it, and perhaps record high-def footage of the child at all angles whilst being raped. Do you see? Now, I could utterly kick myself, because at the time when I saw the booking, I just thought, WTF. I thought, oh my God. And then I just closed the tab. You know, after thinking, oh my God, I actually vaguely remember pressing print to PDF before that, but I really don't know if I remember correctly. The intelligent me should have pressed print to PDF, right? And then I would have it somewhere. And maybe that file is still on one of my computers, or maybe it got disappeared by Intel of my computers. Either way, what I'm telling you, investigators, and please get on the case, is that there's one hotel in Brussels for sure that's advertising on booking.com. So let's say if you hacked into the booking.com servers and had a look around, you should find this image, okay? Or should find traces of this image. And the reason why you should is because you need the address of that hotel, and you need to be aware that that hotel probably has a basement and probably has a tunnel through which the children are being ferried in to the hotel. I'm not sure how they make their way out of the hotel. That might be, you know, through their bodies being dissolved in acid down a sink. Sadly, this is the truth. But they need to, you know, lots of little children, enough for a dozen-sized gang rape party, need to be able to ferry it into the room, probably, you know, late at night. And if you had a delivery of 12 children after 11 p.m., it might look odd. But if it comes through an underground tunnel, connection, it's not that odd. So in other words, I'm talking, what's it called? Comet. What was it called? What was that in the Pizzagate? Was it Comet Ping Pong, that freakish place with the tunnel system under it? Well, it's that sort of stuff, okay? But it's in Brussels. And if I hadn't been so fucking stupid on Eurotech, I would have the address for you now, but I don't, okay? So those people who are accessing my computers freely, have a look. Maybe it's still there. I don't think it's on this computer, though. So I don't know. I think it's on the other one, on the Linux computer. Maybe you have a mirrored image of my computer somewhere. Have a look for that. Those people who do not root around my computer, maybe root around the servers of booking.com. And if you're not a hacker, maybe start looking for, hotels around Brussels in your free time. On booking.com, maybe you come across this image. I think with enough of us, we should find this place. Okay, and this is super, super, super important. And one of the things I want to get across to absolutely everybody is that, how to put this? Well, after you've seen the brain chips, you probably can't be shocked. But, the truth is that we have child trafficking as the underbelly of this massive global organized crime cartel in absolutely every town and every city. When you have a city like London or Paris with something like 12 million people, it means that you have to have an infrastructure whereby you're literally supplying this mega city with a non-stop stream of children to sacrifice. Do you understand? Because there's so many people in that town who have to keep refreshing their control files at the high echelons. And by now, with the spread of the franchise of the Illuminati, I think even lower levels have to refresh their control files nonstop. And you refresh your control files by killing a child. Okay. As I'm saying it, I'm being machine gunned through several layers of aluminium from my neighbors. As I'm holding my hand, the machine gunning seems to come from north. I really need help here in Zurich, honestly. If you want me to continue, I need help. Okay, so you have to really help me. But anyway, I want you all to understand that there's this massive infrastructure. If I just analyze it, back of the envelope calculation of how many children need to be ferried into these large cities to be murdered, we're talking a massive operation. And then suddenly you discover the real purpose of MI6 and MI5. Do you see? So I think MI6 is importing children from war zones. They're gathering children wherever they can get them, and it's used for this. But what this means is that in our cities, there are hidden rat lines. Okay, there are hidden rat lines coming from the ports because they're ferrying in, children from poor countries to be murdered in rich countries, so that people high up in the architecture can refresh their control files. So what I'm saying to you is that there must be in all of our ports, in all of our cities, literally below every town hall, and absolutely everywhere in towns, there must be underground rat lines or secret connections between buildings from one building to the next, okay, where it's a national grid of child trafficking. And we need to look for that. So anywhere where you see groups of young people being taken to, it could be a museum, okay? Because when you take, say, a busload of children, and a busload of children keeps arriving, and their children are going into the museum, do people really count how many children go in and how many come out? Or do people only see busloads of children arriving? Do you know? Have you checked? When you saw a busload of children arrive, did you stick around long enough to see them leave? Have you? You probably remember one day where you saw a busload of children arrive. Now ask yourself, were you there until closing time to keep track if the same number of busload of children left as many as arrived? Have you checked? Because I haven't. And when I realized, scanning my brain, because when you're going places, you're basically random sampling. You're random sampling the world. It's like a random walk. And, And at some point I realized, hang on, I many times, I tend to be, I'm not an early morning person. Okay. So I usually tend to arrive at places late, and I rather stay to the end till closing time and not so much, in the early times. And then I thought, as I was random sampling the world, I have got all these visual memories of busloads of children arriving at places like museums or play fairs or amusement parks, but I do not have that many memories of them being picked up and leaving. I seem to have decided asymmetry between memory images of busloads of children arriving, and I don't see them leave. Maybe it's just me, but just ask yourself, try to, lean back, maybe after a glass of wine when your brain center's been partially switched off and you can really go through memory space. Ask yourself how many images you remember of buses arriving and how many do you remember of them leaving, and try to tot them up, because something tells me that as we were going all these years to museums, to amusement parks, and places where you take children, especially if they're like Disney World and they're really big and really expensive to run, they're probably being run by cartel holders, okay? And it's exactly those people who are running child trafficking and child sacrifice rings, So if you're looking for missing children, maybe that's a place to start. Disney World, for example. I'm not accusing the runners of Disney World of this, but it would be a place to start, But then also think of those places that are closer to town, And then I thought, oh yeah, how many museums are right in the center of town? And who's running those? Oh, the state, or really rich individuals. Well, there you go. Okay. So if you're looking for an entry to the rat lines where children are being taken to supply an entire town, just think about, what if it's under your local museum? Because then these children would arrive, they would be taken through the museum. You would see occasionally children walk around, but what you wouldn't see is that these little blue-eyed children who maybe don't know that they're about to be trafficked and, and sacrificed and never to return to their parents or to their orphanages, maybe one by one are taken down, a door to the left, to the right, a totally unassuming, normal-looking door, never to resurface. Because if it were like that, no one in a city would notice, like I have not noticed for decades. And I've been to a lot of museums. Okay? So, again, if you find this unbelievable and you think, how the F can this be? Think about the fact that every government and every society is by now being run by psychopaths at the top, and there's this big Masonic infrastructure. Why Masonic? Well, just because that was the first or one of the oldest front organizations for the mafia. So that's the one that spread the furthest. Okay, you've got Masonic lodges, whatever they are called. So basically, where men are brainwashed, by the mafia. You've got these little factories everywhere. Okay, so I'm putting out an appeal to everybody who's stayed this long to listen to this. Okay, it's really important. It's super important. Check your major hospitals, check your major museums, check your major whatever downtown, because that will be the most convenient to ferry children into the center of a town, make them disappear, and then, spread them around town. And then also think about the fact that it needn't be a very, big and obvious place. Okay. Literally, you can also, if you have enough helpers, and we know that these guys do, you could take, batches of 3 or 4 children and make them, go into some unassuming house that maybe has a rather deep basement, here, then 6 children there, and so on. And you can just, distribute these children. But I expect to find both. I expect to find, fast supply of children, a quick feed into the system, like museums would be ideal. And then also this kind of like distributed stuff. So in other words, please, query your big database. Fuck Google and fuck the AI. Query your database, because you have a database of images in your head from decades of experience and ask yourself, where did you see children go into a building, you know, and did you ever see them leave? Like this, okay? So that's the sort of questions you should be asking. And the entire line of attack is that the people who are torturing me, the people who have stolen all the money in the governments, and the people who put literally millions of people in the US on food stamps because of the mortgage fraud, they are all the same. Okay, they are torturing me, they have bankrupted you, they are trafficking children. And we, if we approach them from different angles, as these armies are, kind of narrowing in on them, we're going to find them quicker if we, start looking. But the children are high priority because as we speak, they're being murdered in droves. Okay. I don't know how many children are being murdered per day for this for this psychopathic Masonic architecture, this mafia architecture, but it's a lot. Frankly, I never dare to actually put pen to paper and do the back of the envelope calculation. I'm not sure if I could recover from knowing the number, So please get on the case. This is really fucking urgent. So to be honest, every single time I'm being machine gunned by Dr. Paul Sinninger's crazy Nazi psychopaths, the only thing that actually makes me get up, and get back on my feet sometimes is just to think, well, if I can't manage, remember that for every victim, there must be at least 100, probably more like 1,000 children somewhere in cages who really, they could not get back up on their feet even if they wanted to because they're in a cage. So if you're a victim and you've got a bad day, maybe this is a thought that could get you back up on your feet, because I tell you, most days you can get back up on your feet. And we're now in a phase where whatever happens, as I said, as long as we still breathe, as long as we still have a pulse, we need to get going. So that's it for today. And this was rather long. I'm very sorry, but I hope you found it useful. I'm doing my best. I'll also read all your comments that I couldn't read live. And thank you. Thank you all for your really valuable contributions. Thank you for absolutely everybody in the chat who comes along and actually puts in kind words to other victims and encouraging words, because some days your fuel, whatever keeps you going, are just the odd kind word that you heard or maybe heard in the past. It's the echo of those words that makes you keep going when you're a Holocaust victim, So to all the Holocaust victims out there and to all the children who probably don't hear me say this, we're coming for you, and we're coming for you now, okay? We're going to get you out of this. And we will be there quicker than you expect, I hope. And for everybody who isn't a victim, please make that come true. So from now on, every single time we say something, we talk about weapons, the next sentence should be about the children, okay? So weapons, children, mesogens, and remember the children, who probably all have them by now, and so on, okay? So the children are the priority. They are our future. We need to think about them first. Thank you for listening, and bye for now. More tomorrow or next week. I'm doing my best. So good night, and thank you to all who have been listening. Take care.